Welcome everyone to Love and Pod, the weekly Trigun Stampede podcast. I am your host, Lady Zeon, the Double Fang, and with me as always is my co-host Kai, the non-binary typhoon. Say hello, Kai.
Heyo, let's see how long we can get this weekly streak going this time.
Woo! Alright, 2 in a row. Okay, so we are now on episode 6. It is Once Upon a Time in Hopeland. I actually did not realize the first time I watched it that Hopeland was the name of the orphanage that Wolfwood goes to. That just completely slipped over my head the first time. And I didn't actually pick it up until like the eye catch where it showed it on the map and it said Hopeland Orphanage. And I was just like, oh, that's why it's called that.
That's interesting, because I kept seeing that on the maps, and I was like, I bet that's where Wolfwood's from, because I remembered that, him being from an orphanage. And it's like a thing that I see before I saw anything else going on the map. I would just see the thing that was more centered and big.
I have not paid attention to that map at all. Like, every time I was like, oh yeah, no, it's the eye catch, whatever. I was just like, it's a map, cool. It didn't even dawn on me that it had like the names of locations that were relevant to the show, and like you see like July, and then you see like the orphanage. I didn't bother reading the rest of it, but like the Hopeland Orphanage caught my attention.
Yeah, it also has a marker showing you where they're at, and that's like what the animation of the blinking is that you see, is them showing you this is where we're at right now.
Oh,
and I didn't realize that until the previous episode when I noticed. I went, oh. And I thought I was just dumb for not noticing it until the last episode, and so I was just kept it to myself.
You're like, I ain't gonna say shit. No, I'm over here like, yo, did you know there's like words on this fucking map? Okay, so let's just go ahead and kick things off with our recap. The episode opens with a cold open of a guy running through the desert. He's got like a mask on and a suit, and he's running from something, and he turns. It's Wolfwood. He fires at Wolfwood, shoots him multiple times. Wolfwood cracks open that vial that we saw him take from the previous episode, drink it, it heals his wounds, and then Wolfwood kills that guy. Jump into our OP, and then the episode starts proper. We get radio reports about like the stolen plants in July, the whole thing that like that Vash has been, heading towards. Roberto was just like, hey, there's a sand steamer that's going to be heading towards July. We're going to drop you off there. Meryl's just like, oh, we're going to like leave the car? And it's like, no, we're dropping his ass off because we have enough like info on him to write like 10 articles. And she's just like, what the hell? And it's just like, hey, our job is done. So they drop him off at the sand steamer. Wolfwood joins him. Meryl is really upset with Roberto, like pulling up the photo. It's like, we finally got like some dirt on this guy. And Roberto's just like, yeah, people who don't age for 20 years, no, that's some freak shit that I ain't fucking with. So he wants out. Meryl's just like, well, what if we just kind of like follow behind, kind of undercover? And then Roberto's just like, fine. Back at the steamer, Vash is questioning why Wolfwood sticks around. He's like, oh, I'm like your older brother. I gotta protect you from, all these people because clearly you won't do shit. So then they get into an argument about morality, and Wolfwood just willy-nilliness to just take lives. And then the duo are attacked by a mysterious gunman. Wolfwood gets a good look at him, and he clearly recognizes him, and he calls him Livio. We get a flashback. Wolfwood is in an orphanage. A new kid shows up. It's Livio. They become good friends. We see them kind of hanging out, having fun. Flash forward. Wolfwood is trying to stop Livio. The police are trying to arrest Vash and Livio. Meryl is on her way following the sand steamer after having convinced Roberto. And then the Badlands show up behind Meryl. We get another flashback of the orphanage. This time it's of Wolfwood being chosen as a child of blessing. He gets experimented on. He grows to an adult form within like a few months. He tries to escape the facility. They shoot at him. He uses the drugs to heal himself. As he's just about to escape, a telekinetic force catches him and basically just crumples his body, dropping him. Back in his cell, Wolfwood meets a mysterious blue-haired guy with telekinetic powers who tells him he will now be selected to join the Eye of Michael. Wolfwood refuses, tells him to shove it. Then he pulls out Levio, and he's just like, this kid followed you, he loves you, like, if you won't do the thing, he's volunteered to take your spot. So Wolfwood's hand is forced. Flash forward, the cops are shooting at Levio, and he's healing instantly. And Wolfwood notices that he is doing this without the aids of the drugs that he takes. Levio shoots at the cops. Vash goes to confront him, gets into a tussle, pins him down, and Levio says, I have to catch up. Hard cut to the mysterious blue-haired fellow and Zazie the Beast watching everything from afar. The mysterious blue-haired fellow is clearly testing Wolfwood, trying to get him to either choose between, like, who's going to live between Vash and Levio, and really trying to push Wolfwood. Wolfwood tells Vash to hide. Legato, damn it, I said his name. They don't actually say his name in the episode. Mysterious blue-haired guy cracks, like, the cylinder to the steamer, sending it off course, and oh shit, the Badlands gang have just shown up. And, fuck it, I already said it. Legato says, like, Wolfwood needs to choose who will die and who will he save. End of episode. Kai?
This episode was on some artsy shit, and I loved it every step of the way. Every little moment of artsy stuff. Everything. I was
before I comment on the artsy element, I think we have hit the Mythic 2-pass script treatment for an episode of Trigun Stampede.
Yeah, it feels very what's the wording I'm looking for? Like, very...
It feels polished.
Polished is a good word, yeah. It just feels like everything that happens is relevant and connected to something else that happens in the episode.
Yes.
Or is clearly building up to something planned to happen later.
It's not dumping tons of exposition.
I don't feel like anything was wasted.
No.
I don't feel like there was a wasted space of time at any point.
This episode was incredibly lean with everything it needed to do. It establishes, okay, well, we're dropping Vash off. Okay, well, Wolfwoods obviously has a mission given to him by Knives. He needs to stay with Vash, so he goes with Vash. And clearly, mysterious blue-haired guy... Okay, he is Legato. He is Legato Blue Summers from the manga and anime. They did not say his name throughout the entirety of this episode, as far as I know.
Yeah, I didn't notice it either if they said it or not, but I knew it as soon as I saw it. I was like, oh, Legato!
Yeah, no, like, that is kind of the problem with being, like this diehard Trigun fan, is, like, I see a character and I know the character, but then I have to go, wait, did they tell me who this character is, or do I just know who this character is because I know Trigun? In fact, going back to the previous episode, I was just like, oh yeah, this is their version of Monev the Gale. Which is weird because they don't actually call him Monev the Gale.
I was thinking that, but I had figured I missed it because during the podcast episode, you just, like, were so confident saying it's Monev the Gale. And I was like, oh, I must have missed where they said that. Because I miss things all the time.
He is definitely their version of Monev the Gale. And they even added, like, the wind turbine thing to his guns to, like, emphasize the Gale part,
sure.
But then they don't actually call him Monev the Gale.
Oh man, and I could go into that, like, that's probably because he wasn't, like, a good enough of a experiment, I guess. Like, they kept expecting him to die any second because, I don't know.
I mean, maybe they did give him a name, but we wouldn't know because all he could do was yell Kakarot. But yeah, like, a lot of my complaints from the previous episode, like, completely, they're not here. This episode does flashbacks, and it's very, the flashbacks are incredibly stylized, and I am fucking here for it. They look 2D animated, because if that's CG, like...
I think they are. I 100%
Yeah.
believe it's 2D animated. Like, that's more than just being a texture. That's like, it moves like a
Yeah, like there was a
animated
bounce
drawing,
and flow to like the characters that I don't think would have, especially like the way this CG looks. Like maybe with a higher
Yeah.
budgeted production, like not saying that this show looks remotely cheap, it doesn't, but like CG, if you
Yeah.
want it to have bounce and fluidity that 2D animation has, you've really got to put in money for it and time.
Yeah, I can tell you, I was just recently thinking about this, about animators are kind of stuck on this crossroads with the or this dual like feeling of when watching the Hotel Transylvania movies, because it's like it's Hotel Transylvania, but also as an animator you're watching it and you just can't help but love it and find it amazing, but the movies themselves are not the best, written or story-wise. Yeah. And it's like all because of the fact that Gindi over here figured out a way to make CG animation look 2D with all that bounce and fluidity. And we've been doing CG since Toy Story.
Yeah.
And they're only just now starting to figure out how to do that. So I do not blame an anime company that is just starting to... Well, just starting is like in the grand scheme of the timeline of animation,
right.
Like just starting to experiment with having a more two-dimensional look and style to CG animation. I don't blame them for not being able to do that, because it took American movie studios this long, and they still talk about how, like, the Hotel Transylvania movies are the only ones who have done that, because it's this one director who's figured out a way to do it, and that the companies will let him spend the time and money to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some other stuff that kind of has that fluidity and stuff, but, like, Hotel Transylvania was incredibly impressive, especially when it first came out. I was like, oh my god, you can make 3D models, like, have that squash and stretch, like, oh my god, like, this is like a level of effort that I've never seen before.
You should see the behind the scenes stuff of it. The animators are like, yeah, he, drew over, the director, Gandhi, drew over frames of the animation of, like, this needs to be a keyframe of, like, a really squashed and stretched out version of the character. And the modeler and the animators would have to go in and essentially break the models to make it happen. And they were just like...
That's cool as shit. That's really awesome.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of work. I've said it before with, like, the first couple episodes of this anime of, like, I can definitely see that this CG for this anime, even though I still don't particularly care for how it looks, I definitely see that it's artists and animators who are behind it and who are working with it, and not just... people who said, wait, I don't know how to animate, so let me find a cheat code. Because you see a lot of that with new technology. You see a lot of people doing that.
Honestly, the first two of, like, the modern era of Dragon Ball movies, they clearly use CG as a shortcut, where they just slap some models, horribly rig them, just so they could do 3D pan-around shots without having to animate them. Yeah. And it looks fucking abysmal. There's so many examples, especially... like, you just go 10 years back in anime, and it was rough. This studio, Studio Orange, when they dropped Landed Illustrious, it blew everyone's fucking mind, because they were like, oh my god, like, a CG anime can look this fucking good? Like, right. Japan's putting, like, effort and money and talent behind this technology?
Yeah, and this episode of Stampede had me thinking of that again, because of the way, like, the fighting between Livio and Vash especially. It's not just that they froze the characters and did fancy camera movements the way a lot of the Battle of Gods and Resurrection F stuff did, where it was still the same frozen poses. It's like, no, they animated the characters in the scene, doing the fight and doing the movements, and took advantage of timing, of freezing on certain frames, and, like, all of that for dramatic effect.
Yeah.
While using the camera movement to add to it. And that's why it's like, this is a new tool being used by artists who know what they want and are doing it, who have experience and knowledge and what they need.
Yeah, no, I really like the shot of, like, Vash, and, obviously because it's CG, it's technically less impressive than 2D, if this were 2D, but, like, Vash running up to Livio and grabbing him, tussling with him, flipping him down, and then, like, getting on top of him, and as the camera pans around them, like, to really emphasize, like, the momentum of the toss down, and then, like, getting up in their faces, and you really see, like, the emotion on them. and it's like following the movement. It's like, yeah, like they really do take advantage of the 3D space that they have. They're not just using it as a cheap trick. They're not using it as just to be like, oh, well, we'll just do CG models instead of 2D because it's easier. Like, no, these are artists. They know what the hell they're doing. And the visual elements of this show have always been a strong point for me. Even when the episodes are written like fucking Garbo, the visual component has always been on point, which is why I think episode 3 was such a standout. Not necessarily because there was anything in the writing that made that episode particularly great. In fact, we pointed out issues in the writing, but once Knives shows up, it's all spectacle, baby, and they fucking just hit the gas on that episode.
With this episode especially, when the backstory stuff kept kicking in, like, I spent about, I don't know, 2 minutes of like looking at the backstory, 2 minutes in, and I went, I'm gonna be drawing in this style. I love this crosshatch work. I love everything about this. I got an idea already. Then when we're done recording, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna draw this little Wolfwood and Livio picture I have in mind and try to do that style because it's just so beautiful and there's something very motivating and inspiring about it. I just really loved it.
Yeah, no, I loved it. It had a very textured, sketchbooky look to it that I really, really dug. But yeah, anyhow, going back to what I was first saying about the flashbacks is like, I said, last episode that the flashbacks were, in the previous episode, were really disjointed, going from the past to the present, the past and the present, not making it clear for a really long time that this was a flashback. There was a lot of things that, really took me out of that episode. Here, the flashbacks are stylized, and even if they weren't stylized, like, it's a whole shift in location. Even if this wasn't Wolfwood, well, I mean, obviously, like, it's actually about characters that we know in the scene, so we see the connective tissue between what's happening in the present and this flashback and why it exists. So, yeah. Getting to see, like, Livio and Wolfwood, I was really surprised that they kept Livio, like, the same as a child, like, the whole crybaby Livio thing from the manga. And then I love how, like, he's in that stylized look. I also love how the entire thing's silent. All silent, text like a silent film on the screen. And then once they do the experiments on Wolfwood and he comes back out of it and he's screaming and he's like now a grown adult covered in blood and like machinery, then everything's vocalized and then it's in like the show's normal art style.
The music was also really on point this episode, the way they scored the episode too, because there was like, they had like a very specific sound for the backstory. I didn't have a chance to like go back and see if it was exactly the same piece. I'm assuming it was. But then it was like as the episode was coming to an end and you were getting climactic, like the situation of Wolfwood being torn and upset and everything, it would go back to that same sound, most likely the same musical piece, even with all the like, like really gentle, lots of piano, I think. And even with all like the gunshot firing and moving around and action going on, it still had that, and that created that feeling of like Wolfwood's really torn up and upset and really connected everything that was, it helped to subconsciously bring your mind to like connecting what was happening with that big action scene back to the backstory stuff we did. I don't know. I liked a lot about this episode. I liked a lot of the artistic stuff going on.
Yeah. I'm just gonna go ahead and make my opinions known. Yeah, I think this episode's fucking great. And that's saying a lot coming from me because this is like the Livio episode, and they have definitely changed Livio. Because obviously, the Eye of Michael, they've very much changed what they are, their function within the story and the world. He's more clean cut. He's got that metal plate on his face where, like, he did have a mask originally in the manga, but it wasn't like this metal thing, like, affixed to his face. But, like, I definitely miss the old Livio design, but I'm fine with this one. And honestly, like what they're doing with his character, where he kind of seems a bit more mind controlled almost. Like, he's like this man on a mission, this silent fucking like super badass. But then he has that one line to Vash, I have to catch up.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Because I was just like, oh, because it's like the only thing Livio says in the entire episode, like in the present at least. And like he has that one line, and it's just like,
it's
oh,
Wolfwood. He's trying to catch up to
trying to catch up to Wolfwood.
Like, I mean, it's Wolfwood. He's
yeah,
like
it's like his whole thing was like, joining the Eye of Michael to follow in Wolfwood's footsteps, and he needs to catch up to Wolfwood as like this member of the Eye of Michael, which isn't too far removed from like what he was in the manga. I'm kind of surprised like how similar he is. Like, I was really worried that it's like, oh, like this anime's changing so much, like this interpretation of Livio is gonna give people such a wrong fucking like idea of this character and what he is in the source material. But honestly, they got him pretty right. Like, other than like the aesthetically speaking, his character is pretty spot on. Like, he's introduced much sooner, which is fine.
He's very like, it's a soft spoken, and also the crybaby Livio stuff, and just he's very silent type. He's very quiet. That's what I remembered from the manga and stuff, and from the original source.
Yeah, like he doesn't really start talking until, well, that's spoilers. You know what? Never mind. I'm not even gonna say like when he starts becoming more talkative. But in the beginning, he is definitely more quiet.
And he's also like, he's very much so, from what I remembered from the original, from when I read the manga. He's very like, when he does speak, it's only when it's absolutely necessary, and he only uses as much words as necessary. So he is what I remembered. But yeah, I could be wrong.
I'm trying to remember myself, honestly, because like I know he isn't super talkative because he is kind of like Murder Machine Man, and he like where in this he's targeting Vash. In the manga, he targeted Wolfwood specifically, because he was a servant of the Eye of Michael,
right? And
Wolfwood had turned against them. So I was wondering, and has the term gung-ho gun actually been used in this show?
I don't think so. It might have been stated, I think, in the first episode, but I might be mixing that up with the fact that the Bad Lads gang was name dropped early on.
Yeah.
Because I know that was one. I know that was one that got name dropped, but I don't think the gung-ho guns have been name dropped.
Yeah, because like I was trying to think, like the only time that they really could have mentioned them is like when Zazie the Beast showed up.
Yeah, and like during his conversation with Wolfwood at the end of that episode.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, because I'm like wondering, I'm like, wait, have the gung-ho guns shown up at all, or am I just calling them the gung-ho guns because I know? Because, like, the gung-ho guns in this are, like, very different.
Yeah.
E.g. the Mind just seems like a random hitman that Knives souped up. Monev the Gale is part of the Eye of Michael, and he was this big roid rage monster guy who doesn't even speak other than shouting Vash. Are they really even like because like I don't even consider them like an organization like they were, like a team.
Yeah.
Like they were in the manga and in the anime.
That is, I know, at the very least I can say with like absolute certainty right now, Monev the Gale was never part of like the team, the group. I mean, we see Zazie the Beast and, you already name dropped him, Legato, talking and hanging out. So at the very least, Zazie is going between people and talking between different people in that group. But I don't even know if Wolfwood and Legato have really talked outside of when he first joined the group, quote unquote, assuming there is a solidified understanding of one.
Yeah, and by the way, like, much like how everyone has been souped up in this series, Legato has gotten a power-up.
Hey, I'm okay with that so long as it's, like, everybody's on, like, if you're gonna soup everybody, if you're gonna, like, up the, like, if you're
power level.
Yeah, if you're gonna up the power level for anybody, like, to make it more spectacle and just bigger, I think it is a good idea to just, do that for everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone's on a higher level so that things are more explosive. Like, I think that's fair.
Because, like, yeah, like, one of our big things was, like, that first episode really didn't communicate, like, so what is the level of skill here?
Yeah.
Random jobber dickhead shooting a bullet out of the sky, and it's like, the fuck?
Yeah.
Honestly, like, yeah, that episode had plenty of problems, but,
Not this one. This one was good.
no, oh my god, yeah, no, like, I don't, like, honestly, this episode was just lean. It's a lot of forward momentum. A lot of the emotional impact comes from the flashbacks.
And the connection between the flashback and the action.
Yeah, and the present.
Well.
And, like, how it all ties together. And, like, honestly, like, this episode was really well constructed. I don't have complaints. It's so weird to, like, get out of...
one.
Like, it's so weird to get out of one of these episodes, and I'm like, I don't think I have anything to bitch about. I watched it twice.
One thing.
Okay, what's your one thing?
I got one thing, and it's petty Roberto bullshit, right?
Okay, go ahead.
It's not even that big of a deal, but it was just one thing when he was talking to Meryl. He's like, oh, you know, you're still learning the ways of our world or something. And I don't know, maybe that's a translation dub thing, but that wording rubbed me the wrong way. I'm like, she's an adult who's been living here this whole time. Why are you talking to her as if she's never existed here before, as if she's like a foreigner or something? I don't understand why this keeps being the attitude.
We're gonna find out she was actually isekai'd from a different anime.
Oh my god.
It's why she doesn't know jack shit, but she's still a college student and an adult.
I mean, like, and at the very least, like, I wasn't, I know in the previous episode, like, Roberto had a little bit of, like, an exposition dump of, like, oh, there's this monster that's hanging around, but, like, to that episode's credit, that if you're gonna have to have a way for a character to, like, introduce the idea of some monster sneaking around, that's a good way to do it, is it's like he was playing it up to try to scare her awake, like it was a horror story.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that... You know, if it weren't for the fact that I was already annoyed at him expositioning dumping in, like, previous episodes in a very clunky way, that probably wouldn't have bothered me. And the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, nah, that in and of itself wasn't bad. And I feel like he's getting better. I feel like he's getting better. You know, but maybe it's because he's getting less screen time.
Yeah, there's that. Also, I'm going to say a nice thing about Roberto. He played a function within the narrative that did not upset me.
Yes.
He got Vash and Wolfwood separated from them because, you know, and he did it in a way that makes sense. It's like, yeah, no, like they're reporters. They had a job, and it was kind of weird that they'd already stuck around for this long.
Yeah.
So he's just like, you know, we've done our part. We have our info. You go. I don't really feel like taking like a bullet to the head by some crazy monster man. Like that stuff was bullshit.
And honestly, fair. Honestly, completely fair.
It's like the one time Roberto has said something in this series where I went, you know what, bro? You right. I can't.
You're right. You do you, buddy. That's
like,
fair.
get the fuck out.
I will say when the Badlands gang showed up and I saw them, my first instinct was, oh my god, is this Mad Max all of a sudden?
Yeah, no, like when they showed up and I saw the neons, I was like, Badlands! Because I was not, because when they went to the Sand Steamer, I was like, oh, I wonder if we're going to do the Badlands storyline at all, like any kind of adaptation of it. But then we did Levio, and I'm like, oh, well, we're doing Levio. Oh, fuck, we're doing the Badlands too. Like, this episode, like, I think one of the things that makes this episode, like, so engaging is that it just kept throwing stuff. Like, the situation kept getting progressively worse.
Yeah.
Because, like, you have Vash who's running from Levio. Wolfwood's trying to keep these two people from killing each other. Like, the police...
We get emotionally invested in Wolfwood's motivations.
Like we got flashbacks that were really relevant to Wolfwood and his character, and, like, explored his motivation for why he would not want Levio to die, and, like, why he's so protective of him. And we already know he has an attachment to Vash, and it was good. It was a good use of your characters and, like, your setting.
Even with, like, the previous episode, like, the way Vash and Wolfwood in this episode were talking about the previous events added to why it was important for that flashback stuff to happen when and how it did. Because Wolfwood was, like, pushing on to Vash, you gotta, like, kill or be killed kind of situation, you know? And then suddenly he's like trying to make it to where Livio doesn't get killed and trying to just get Vash to like go away and stuff. And it's like really important to have that flashback to understand why, because otherwise we'd be sitting here like, wait, Wolfwood, I thought you were just saying to just shoot people.
Yeah, no, like it really is like once again, like it's well executed, because like, you know, Wolfwood has been so consistent throughout the 3 episodes he's been in, and all of a sudden, a third of the way through this episode, a switch flips in him. He suddenly flips a switch and becomes like a complete hypocrite, and is now trying to protect the guy who's putting everyone in danger. And it's just like, oh.
And letting the audience know why that is as soon as you can is important, especially when you're dealing with something that's a week to week like episode basis of they need, like, it would be really easy, and I would not blame anyone if they didn't do that flashback for someone to turn it off and go, nah, this character's too inconsistent, you know? Like, I'm praising them because I'm like, yes, you put the backstory right where you needed to, exactly where you needed to.
So, I have a theory for this season. I think Wolf was going to die at the end of it.
Do we know if this is going to be a multi-season series or a one-season?
They haven't announced anything. Like, they haven't even announced, like, an episode count. But, like, given, like, I'm pretty sure, like, the intent is to have a season, probably take a break, and then come back in like, another season and drop 13 more episodes.
Yeah.
That's become, like, a pretty standard production cycle. So that's kind of what I'm expecting. So
I think with the way the pacing is now, I don't think they'd be able to get it done in one season.
Oh, yeah.
And if they do, it'd have to be like a 24 to 26 episode season.
Yeah, and those just really don't get made anymore.
Yeah, because think about it, Knives is our big main antagonist, you know, and we haven't seen him in a bit, you know, in a hot minute. So it's like, and that's not bad, but I'm just saying, like, pacing-wise, we're on episode 6, and we only just got kind of introduced to our big main antagonist and haven't heard from him much since. Yeah. And so it's like, it would need to be
like, I mean, we just got introduced to Legato this episode.
Yeah. We would need more at this pace, you know, more time.
So, okay. Like, the reason I think Wolf was going to die in this season, though, is... like, probably, like, the season finale. We're gonna hit, like, episode 13. I think Wolfwood's just gonna fucking eat it. Because we get introduced to Wolfwood, and before we can even start questioning his motivations, Zazie outright just states he's one of them, he's part of their group, he is specifically there to watch Vash, and it's like, oh, okay.
Like, we're kind of speedrunning his story arc here.
Yeah.
Comparatively.
Yeah, episode 2, we get introduced to, like, the whole experiments with the Eye of Michael, and then we show that Wolfwood takes these chemicals to, like, heal himself, so we're, like, throwing that out there immediately, which was not a thing that was... like, shown up front in the manga for a very long time. So, like, all these things that, like, the manga kept close to its chest. We're already introduced to Livio. We've got Wolfwood's backstory. We have his history with Livio. We have the experiments that he was put under as a child. We have confirmation that he is technically still a child. And, yeah, like, it's just like we're rapid firing through all of this stuff with Wolfwood, and I'm like, he isn't gonna make it to the end of, like, of this show. Like he's I think we're just gonna, like, fucking kill him off at the end of this season.
You're gonna die. Has since Linkin Park AMV coming on. When my time comes, forget the wrong that I have done. I'm waiting for it's gonna happen, just watch. Oh gosh, but I was wondering if you noticed post credits there was a illustration of, like, what looked like the several different characters who have the, like, cross-style guns. Like, I counted 4. I didn't really look at it for too long.
Yeah.
But, yeah, after the credits, they had that image, and I know that, like, obviously 2 of them had to be, like, Wolfwood and Livio, and I know in the manga there were other characters. Like, I know there was, like, Church, I think, was one of them, straight up. That was his name.
Chapel,
right. Okay. I was close.
Well, Chapel was, like, his title. I forgot what his actual name was, but yeah. he was Wolfwood's mentor.
Yeah, the fact that there were others in the manga besides Livio and Wolfwood who had that same, like, Christian cross motif going on with their weaponry. And then we see, I'm pretty sure again, it was 4 in that image post-credits. I was wondering if you noticed it, because I noticed it, and I went, ooh, that's there on purpose. That's there to generate hype for people who do know and people who don't know. It's for both of them.
I didn't even think about it like that. I always just thought it was just like a random image showing off like members of the Eye of Michael. I didn't even think about them being like actual characters.
Okay. Probably, yeah.
So, I mean, it might actually have been a teaser and it just slipped right by me, because I did see the piece of artwork that you're talking about, and they usually do, because usually it's a piece of artwork that is done by a different artist every time, and it is like tangentially related to the episode that had just played.
Right. I just think it's like interesting that we got to see the other ones in that piece of artwork, like other people with that same thing that we haven't seen in the anime proper.
Right.
You know? I'm like, oh, I think y'all just confirmed that they exist.
Like, I have to say, like, you know, I still have, like, some of the same gripes that I had before, you know, basically the stuff that we learned in, the previous episode, where, you know, the Eye of Michael is very much attached to Knives. They are literally an organization that worships him like an angel or a god. It's just... It does just, like I said, it just makes the world feel smaller.
Yeah, and the whole, like, it still has that same issue of feeling like it kind of lessens Knives' point when Knives had to intervene and, like, brainwash a bunch of people, as opposed to people are just bad.
Yeah. I mean, we don't even really know exactly what Knives' motivations are in this series.
That's true. He could just be out to try to be God. He could just be that.
Like, and really, he may not be, like, you know, making people to be, like, monstrous, but just he's accruing it like an army of super soldiers for, like, a world takeover type thing.
I didn't think of that. I didn't think that, like, we didn't actually know his motivations
Yeah, because, like, you know, he says, like, some vague stuff about, like, you know, protecting their siblings or whatever, you know, which would be the plants. Yeah. Like, we know that from the manga and the anime, that Vash and Wolfwood are plants. But as far as, like, what triggers Knives in this continuity, we haven't seen yet. I know when I was looking at the thumbnails, one of them shows, like, it's set on the ship. So we're definitely going to get a flashback with Knives and Vash as kids. Still can't believe we got like a full Wolfwood backstory in a single episode before we did any of this, like, the stuff with Vash.
I am so obsessed with the Wolfwood and Livio backstory stuff. I really am. Like, as soon as we're done recording, gonna pull up my Clip Studio Paint and I'm gonna start drawing. And the whole time watching it, I was going, the babies, not the babies, the babies.
Okay, so I have to say, like, did you get gay vibes off of these kids?
Oh my god, a little bit. I thought I was crazy.
Like the way Livio was like laying on top of him and talking about like paternal love and like all. It's just like
there was something there that I was like, this could be seen as like, even if not literally, it could be seen as like allegorical or symbolic to it.
I'm just saying, if there isn't already, there will be so much fucking ship art of those two.
Like, there already kind of was from the previous season, but, like, that's part of our series, and that's part of why I was, like, from the manga, I mean. But, like, that's part of why when I was watching it, I was like, ooh, okay, yeah, because I already knew that people already shipped those two.
Because it really kind of felt like they were leaning into the yaoi bait of those two. And, like, you know, obviously it's like, you know, they're kids, whatever, but, like, you know, now they're, like, full-grown adults or whatever. But, yeah, no, like they clearly established this really close emotional bond between these two.
Yeah, I was like, oh, man, I had that thought, and then I pushed it down because I know me being the hopeless romantic who's always like looking for shipping fuel for everything under the sun, you know, I'm usually pretty good at being like, okay, so that is just me like reading into things that aren't there and having fun versus that's actually there. So the fact that you brought it up, I was like, oh my god, yes, I did notice
yes,
that.
yes,
there were those
my
vibes.
Fujoshiness was finally validated. Honestly, I think that's everything I had to say about this episode. Like, it was just fucking good.
Oh, there was a lot during, like, the experiment stuff. Like, I know I talked about the art and the backstories, but, like, during the experiment stuff was also, like, so artsy, but in a way that, like, even if I don't know the meaning behind all of what they were doing there, it still felt like every part of that was done, like, with purpose and intent. Because a lot of the times when you see things that are, like, stereotypically in animation called, like, oh, the, you know, LSD do stuff, you know, that people do. Like, that's the stereotype when you see those sort of things. There are points where you see that and you go, yeah, that is just nonsense. But this was definitely one that, when watching it, I was like, no, this was planned out and intended, and I'm sure if I, you know, had the energy or the motivation, I could go in and, like, super, like, break it down, especially when we get more information about Wolfwood and Livio and the Eye of Michael and all that. Like, it felt, that's why I was like, this is artsy in the best possible way, because even the stuff that normally would get, like, brushed off as being, like, oh, like, pretentious, I guess, is like, no, this feels like this was done for a reason. This doesn't feel pretentious. This feels on purpose and with intent, you know? And I really liked it. I liked it a lot.
So is there anything else you have to say?
Nope, other than the scoring.
Alrighty, so on a scale of 1 to 6 bullets, what are you giving this episode?
I'm gonna be crazy. I'm gonna be wild. I'm gonna say 6 out of 6. This episode felt so tight and beautiful, and obviously nothing's perfect. But I'm not going to be the person who says you'll never get an A because it's not perfect. It's just like, no, it's so much. I didn't have really, neither one of us really had anything to say that we really disliked or felt held the episode back. It just all felt so tight and well put together that I have to give it that 6. I can't not do it.
Damn it, you just made a compelling case, because I was going to say 5.5. But... like,
yeah, but you gotta think about, like, why, like, what is knocking those points down, you know?
Yeah, no,
other than not wanting to say it's perfect. We all know nothing's perfect.
Right. I just kind of feel like, yeah, no, because, like, it did have, like, a good emotional core, too. I guess, like, my only hesitance comes from the fact that it does end on a cliffhanger, so it's a lot of build-up and no resolution, so I don't know how it's gonna resolve, but we're judging an episode as a standalone piece. So, you know what? You convinced me. 6 out of 6. I'm gonna do it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Like,
we're getting wild in here, boys.
Like, I am shocked that the fact that it turned down an episode this, like, cogent, like, the storytelling was on point. The momentum, like, of the, like, just the presentation, like, just kept me enthralled. Like, when it ended, just everything was just happening, and then, like, the bad lads show up and an end of episode, and I'm like, fuck, that was 20 minutes already? Shit!
I think it also, like, the cliffhanger, I feel like, was really well done and really hype. It didn't feel upsetting to me. It felt hype and, oh my gosh, I can't wait to watch the
like,
next
honestly,
episode,
like, it's a, like, they got me. Like, they threw, like, this, fuck, man, this is a good fucking episode. Like, I can't fucking complain.
There's an art to cliffhangers. There's an art to doing a good cliffhanger, too, and I feel like they did a good one here.
This was so goddamn well executed. From the beginning of it, the setup, the separation of our main characters, the, introduction of Livio, the juxtaposition between the flashbacks and the present, the whole stuff with Legato and his commentary, as an outsider looking in on the whole thing, and then cause like you have the police are there trying to intervene. You have Livio, who is, like, on a kill mission. You have like Vash, who's trying to keep everyone
The
from
world
getting
felt
hurt.
alive,
Wolfwood,
you
who's
know?
just trying to keep these two friends of his from fucking like hurting each other. And then you have like Legato, who's instigating everything. And then you have the fucking wild card that is the goddamn Gung Ho Guns, or not the you had the wild card that is the Badlands gang showing up. This episode's fucking great. Like I can't. Like
Yeah, like the point of like the police showing up. It's like, yeah, the world is alive and lived in. Like there are police on the steam
the sand steamer.
Sand steamer, thank you. I kept trying to say steam train or steam roller. I was like, that's not right.
It's
man. But yeah, of course there would be security and police officers on there in a world like this, and of course they wouldn't like walk away all because people that they're trying to arrest are telling them to go away.
You know what?
Like,
if I wanted to be pedantic, I could say that the sand steamer did not feel populated enough, and like there wasn't like enough like innocent people in the way of what was going on. But that is a nitpick, because that's literally something I didn't think about until you just said something. So
yeah. And I think it's big enough, and we saw people who were outside running in, so it could be like assumed that they were all inside.
So yeah, like I said, this is the best episode by far. By fucking far. Like,
I really hope the next one lives up to it.
I'll be shocked if we get 2 bangers in a row, like just undisputed bangers, just where we're both like, holy shit, that fucking delivered. Yeah, no, this is like the happiest and most content I think I could actually ever fucking be with this show, and if it can even keep up like 2/3 of this throughout the rest, my opinion on this show will so greatly improve.
This show keeps like going, like getting whiplash back and forth of, oh, that was garbage episode. This is the most amazing thing I've ever seen.
Oh no, I did that with Dragon Ball Super. I don't need that shit again.
Oh no, you're right.
Like every so often, I'm like, yo, this episode fucking rules. Oh my god, this show's like back on track. And then it would just fucking fall off a cliff. I was like, oh, that's what I get for getting like excited.
Let me hit that
My
knock
God.
on wood over here.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
But yeah, no. Fucking great episode. Good. I loved it. My boy Livio, he has not upset me yet. We'll see how his presentation goes moving forward. Banger episode. I got nothing. Just don't. Trigun Stampede. Just don't fuck this up. Don't fuck this up.